Hey, how are you doing? The Japanese modern legal system is based on the Western country's legal system, and ostensibly, the mission of the Japanese modern legal system in civil action is to reveal the fact of civil dispute and ensure and clarify the rights and obligations based on the facts. But in Japan's legal system, civil dispute or mutual conflict is solved by the judgment based on the thoughts of all or nothing, which means like whether or not people concerned at a court have the right there. But originally, the legal concept of clarification of the right of attribution supported by the Western countries is not actually compatible with the Japanese people's sense of value controlling a Japanese society. So because basically the racial perspective that control the Japanese people's thoughts makes us think like the rights and ownership should not be made clear, and the room to share the right and ownership should be left to some extent, so that we should obscure the right of attribution and ownership in the first place with very unique implicit rule that we must not violate in order to prevent us from mutual conflict over the rights and ownership at a court. So in short, simply speaking, the Japanese people don't like making everything clear to decide what is wrong and what is correct and who belongs to this originally. So no matter how unreasonable and no matter how disadvantageous rights is claimed by someone, Japanese people tend to easily accept it with the understanding of unreasonableness, because Japanese people don't want to collapse the friendship and prioritize companion consciousness over the clarification of the right of attribution. So they don't want to somehow solve the civil dispute with current legal system. So they just want to solve the problem by themselves without relying on the legal system. So that's why the number of accusations in civil proceedings in Japan is extremely few compared to other countries, and the number of lawyers in Japan is extremely few compared to other countries. So in other words, filing a lawsuit in Japan means like sending declaration of challenge to enemies to battle each other at a court with preparation for discord each other forever. So Japanese judges figure out this circumstance and also give a sympathy to defendant and plaintiff. So judges bear in mind to give a decision that can be fair for both of them on a case. But the fairness in a Japanese court recognized in the Japanese society is extremely different from that in other countries. So especially on civil proceedings, the fairness at a court, the Japanese judges tend to subconsciously place importance on is that both plaintiff and defendant have negligence for which they bear blame to some extent each other. It's like defendant infringed on your rights, but plaintiff, you as a plaintiff, also had negligence that caused this case because of your carelessness. For example, on the traffic accident case, your driving car was crashed by a car coming across a traffic intersection from the side because of ignoring the traffic lights, although you confirmed the traffic light was blue on your traffic lane and you just went across the traffic intersection. But even on this case, percentage of fault, mutual fault, can't be 100 to 0. A plaintiff, you as a plaintiff who suffered damage with the traffic accident, can be seen that you had fault to some extent because you didn't predict and you didn't confirm a car coming across from the side at a traffic intersection by ignoring traffic signals. So Japanese judges have prerequisites that the liability of negligence should be also put on the plaintiff, no matter what kind of situation it is. So this way of thinking is strongly reflected also on the compensation for the damage when a person is dead because of defendant's fault. So, for example, on the other day, a man coming from Cameroon who was in custody in the immigration detention center was dead because of negligence of the staff of the immigration detention center. Like, they just ignored his complaint that he was really sick and he felt bad in the previous day before he was dead. But a judge recognized this fault of the Japanese government, the Immigration Bureau of Japan, and a court judge, the presiding judge, ordered the Japanese government to pay 1,650,000 yen. But having said that, it was only 115,000 US dollars. Although one man was dead because of the authorities' fault, this compensation amount was too small to admit the fault, thinking with common sense, don't you think? So judges thought that there was also, negligence on plaintiff's side, even in this case. So the overall trend, the Japanese civil courts don't like to make things clear, is significant in the judgment at a court. So in many cases, the presiding judge suggests judicial compromise to plaintiff at the time a plaintiff is more likely to win the lawsuit at a court. This is the judge's consideration to prevent both of them from developing future trouble and evil conflict caused by clarifying where responsibility lies between them. So even though Japan's legal system is based on the Western countries' legal system, racial perspective is strongly reflected on the judgment and the judge's action at a court. So in the results, Japanese society makes very unique legal custom. Japanese society makes really very unique legal system. So in many cases, I think sometimes this is really quite good for Japanese people's sentiments, because this way of judgment is, is totally reflected on their way of thinking. But simultaneously, there are so many people who have no choice but to accept damages and the disadvantages they suffer. So we Japanese already realize that leaving things obscure without making things clear will trigger the bigger conflict problems after that in the future. So especially in the spirit of time, the world is partially unified by the globalized internet. This web conflict solution will brings a more problem to us. So, but hard-headed conservative Japanese lawmakers will not change this situation forever, I think.